Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, and we are doing a little update and going to tinker around a little bit with the 32 Roadster project, the Jack DeLorean Roadster as we're calling it currently. The Roadster that we pulled out of Detroit back in the end of 2020, in the fall of 2020. We grabbed that car. Since we did those like 3 videos of A, rescuing it, B, kind of mocking up the front end and the sheet metal and all that stuff, and then C, the last video that we did where I actually spoke with Jack on the phone and he gave me one photo of the car, of how it looked when he first bought the car. Since then, I've been trying to get my ducks in a row and kind of gather parts. Jack gave me a ton of great information, so kind of gave me a guideline of some of the bullet points that were really important of the car from what he could remember. So, he told me that the car had a flathead in it, and that his brother had actually, George, had built a really hot flathead for the car that he was racing around in. He told me that the car had those, and the photo he sent me, we could tell the car had like 40 Ford style wheels on the car with some trim rings on them, and big and little Blackwall tires when he had it, and a couple of the other different odds and end things that he told me. So what I've been trying to do is trying to figure out some of the history of this car, like what this car was before Jack had it, was already a hot rod for a while and probably had some pretty neat history. I've been coming up kind of with dead ends trying to figure out, find old photos and things like that. I mean, who would have thought a black 32 Roadster with 40 Ford wheels, full fender, there was probably like thousands of them running around, or a lot of them running around Southern California back in the 40s and 50s. So not had a lot of luck. But I asked Dave, who his dad Ron is, who had this car all those years in the garage in Detroit, if he found any old photos of the car or video or anything like that as he's cleaning some of his dad's stuff up, please put them aside or send me copies of them. So we were in luck. It was in between the last video was shot, he was digging through some stuff and he found 2 photos of the car that no one has ever seen before, including Dave. He was digging through and found some old car photos that nobody really knew of, and 2 of those photos were the 32 Roadster that I now own. So that Roadster, in those photos, we can see that it does in fact have the 40 Ford style wheels on it with the trim rings, just like the photo that Jack sent us. But in those photos, it actually has wide white walls on it, so it has big and little still, has wide white walls. I asked Jack about that, and he kind of gave me a funny story of how they got the white walls, and his buddy gave him the rear ones, and he acquired the front ones in a kind of funny way. And he said that they were kind of put on later on, but he said that he thought he had them turned like inside out or something. He wasn't sure, but anyways, he did confirm that the story about that. So when he sold that car, the differences we noticed in that short time he owned the car, early on it had black walls, big and littles. In the photo in which was right after he sold it, we now have a front view of the car, and we can see that it has a California 1953 license plate on it still on the front 32 plate holder, which is really cool, and Jack must have left that on. We saw that the white walls were changed. We saw that in the photo it actually does have a dropped headlight bar, so Jack was kind of mentioning that it had a dropped headlight bar, but the first photo he sent me, it looked like it had a stock headlight bar, so that was kind of a little confusing. So that was some stuff that kind of gave me a little bit more information. We saw it had the drop headlight bar. It has the like Aero style small headlights that were common that you would see on hot rods back then, just the standard ones. So we got a lot of different information on it. The photos that were kind of funny was that Ron he had actually done old school, if you want to call it traditional photoshopping. He actually, which guys I know used to do, he actually cut the photos and sectioned the car, so he had a second set of photos that he took of the car from those views, where he actually cut and sectioned it and taped it back together. So those are kind of cool. Maybe when Ron was younger, he was dreaming of sectioning the 32 Roadster. I'm kind of glad he didn't, to be honest, because it's pretty bitchin' as it is. So we got those photos. Then finally, later on, Jack and his daughter actually contacted me, and they were going through some family photo albums, and they found one or two more photos of the car. I can't remember. Definitely one photo of the car with like the door opening from a different angle, and we now can see a lot more about the car, and we can kind of see some of the stuff was, as when he bought the car. It was the same day of that first photo, I think, where it's parked in front of the house, and he took some photos. So now we kind of have an idea of what the car needs. It had a flathead, the wheels and tires, all that stuff. So I started going through the things that I got with the car, and I actually found the wheels that were on the car back in the day. All those wheels that we dug out of the garage in Detroit, I just threw them on a pile in my stash of wheels. Didn't really look at them too closely. So I went out, started looking at them, and sure enough, I found some 40 Ford wheels with the trim rings still on them. No hubcaps, unfortunately, the center caps, but they had the trim rings on them, and sure enough, bigs and littles. It had 650s or 7s on the back, and they were like kind of like truck type tires, which you used to see a lot because it's probably easy to get the truck type pattern bias plies. And then the fronts were 6s, I think, and they were kind of worn out, but they were definitely the wheels and tires. They were black. They had the same trim rings on them. They were red. So I dug those out. That got my ass kicked in gear, and I started ordering up tires. So I want to, like a lot of these cars, when I get these cars, I kind of do a I embrace what the car was, but sometimes I do some little tweaks like we did with the 34 behind me, where you get it sitting just a little bit better. You know, back in the day, it wasn't as easy to jack up the car and take a leaf out of the spring, and you just drove the darn thing. You didn't care. So same thing with the DeLorean Roadster here. We're going to do a couple little things like that. So I'm actually going to go to a slightly bigger rear tire size, and I ordered up a set of 750 16 tires that a friend of mine, Donnie, had mocked up on one of his cars at his shop. I really liked the way that it looked, so they were some pretty inexpensive tires, so I gave them a try. So I got those tires, and we've already in beforehand, we'll drop shots in here, Mike, of me installing those tires. I was all psyched. We got those tires. I got the old wheels on, the trim rings, all that stuff. Then I went to order the front tires, and I was going to go to a 550 16 on the front. It had 6s, I believe, on the front before. I was going to do 550s. Now, the reason I was going to that is I started measuring the tires, and a lot of these old bias ply tires, the size, the diameter of the tire varied greatly between brand. So I actually was looking at the 616s, and I'm like, they look really small. And I rolled them up next to another Firestone 616s I had. They were like half of an inch or more shorter, these 616s, than the Firestone ones. So I started looking at diameters on Coker and and some of the different tire sites, and sure enough, they were all like the Firestone I had. They were over a half an inch taller. So I'm glad that I took that time, because I realized that the Firestone and some of the other brand 550 16s that you get nowadays of bias plies are actually closer to what was on the car when they were labeled as 616s. So went to order some tires. Coker is on like national back order of like every freaking 16-inch tire they made. Obviously, like with everybody with the virus and stuff, different things are messed up with production. So I didn't want to wait for the production, so I went ahead and started looking around, found a set of tires, just got them in. That's what made me decide to kind of shoot this video. So I'm going to get the front tires mounted up. We can set the thing down and finally see it looking cool like it should look. And yeah, I can't wait. So we're going to do that, and then I'll give you a couple more updates on the car here at the end. All right, so typical of whenever I try and film anything, it's raining outside, so don't mind the noise. So here's my tires. I got these on Facebook Marketplace, and shout out to my buddy Ryan, who gave me a heads up one morning. He texted me and said, hey, weren't you looking to trade some like 475 16 tires for some 550s? Here's an ad of a guy selling a set. Hit him up right away. They're like barely used tires. They were a pretty good price. They're like half off or something like that, where I saved a little bit of money, and he had them right then so we could get the car kind of mocked up, which is what I was very impatient about. So even if I end up getting different tires or buying totally brand new tires when we're ready to drive the car, I have something I can start mocking the car up and we can start building it with and dialing into how the car sits. So these tires are actually the Excelsior 550 16s. I have these on the 39, and I actually have these on, I have the 516 version on the Free T. Really like the Excelsior tires. I think they have a cool look to them, and sidewall's a little bit different than a Firestone, so if you're trying to be a little different, geeky stuff like that is kind of cool. So cutting these things out, and he's got them wired up real nice. So what I have here is in the back of the Roadster, I've been stashing a lot of the parts we got for the car. I have stashed aside for it in here. So I found some brakes that we got with the car. I still have my fender brace here. I still need to get one more of those. I have a couple guys that have offered me braces to buy, and I just haven't gotten around to completing that. So I got all those parts in there. I got the wheels slid underneath here, so I'm going to grab them out, go over to the tire machine, we'll get them mounted up. All right, so back in the corner here, my Eastwood tire changer. This thing has been a life changer because I'm able to just like play big kid Legos and mock up cars and mock up wheels and tires and stuff really quickly and easily. So big shout out to Eastwood for their tire changer. You can get a rim clamp that's pretty inexpensive, so it has made things a lot easier for me, and you guys see me use it in all kinds of videos, so I can swap around wheels and tires, mock a car up, get a junk car rolling. You can do it all here, and I don't have to wait. If I get a flat tire or tube, I can quickly change it. So again, I got these 550 16s. They're a little smaller. They are a tiny bit smaller than the 6s that were on the car, but I think the difference in size will look pretty cool. So that's why I ended up choosing them. And they were the 6s that were modern 6s were a lot bigger than what the car had. So we're gonna go with these. I think it'll look bitchin'. The most I might have to do is take a leaf or two out when the time comes. But I've kind of covered in other videos mounting tubes, how to mount tubed tires, and there's a bunch of different ways to do it, but I like to stick the tube in second, try and save myself one chance of popping the tube, like in on other instances. So I usually put a little bit of air in them. Makes a little bit of a pain in the butt, but kind of helps keep them from folding on themselves and getting bound up or pinched when they have a little bit of air. And I rarely ever pinch a tube anymore. I have to remount it or patch it. So the car, when I was going through these tires and trying to find which ones I thought might have been off the car, I found the 4 that I was pretty positive were for the car. And I looked at them, and when we took the old tires off, what the heck? When I took the old tires off, I found that they actually had they had a staggered set. They had 4.5s in the rear and 4s in the front. So that's kind of what I prefer myself, even though it's not much of a difference. It does make a little difference in looks. So it's kind of cool that it was exactly what I would have done wheel-wise myself. Oh yeah. Sweetness. Oh, we got that one mounted up. Air it up, do the other one, and we can do some big kid Legos. So one thing that's neat about this car that you notice in all the little different like mods that they did back in the day to this thing. So one thing that's kind of cool is they took the stock shock arms and they're like Z'd in, I guess, for whatever axle that they have on the front of this. They actually had to change that, so they like heated and bent and Z'd the shock arms. And I believe these little shock, the dog bones are, I think, shortened. I've never seen ones that were that short before. So I'm thinking they're probably cut and shortened. But they had those hooked up in there, which is kind of cool. It has 3940 style brakes on it. by looking in the back, it looks like it's 40 style. We also noticed that the wishbones are actually split on this car underneath. When we got this car, I was so focused on getting the car safely off the lift and getting it home safely that I didn't really get to look over a lot of the stuff on the car. So we can actually see that the car has split wishbones on it as well, on top of the drop axle and everything. So it's pretty cool that all that stuff's been done to it. The spindles have been heated and dropped, and it's actually kind of interesting to see how they did it. They actually heated and dropped them so that they put the drag link or the tie rod on top or over the wishbones instead of under, which we do on a lot of them. So it just depends on how the drop is on this, but on this one, they actually went over top of the wishbone. So that's kind of neat to see how they were doing all of this back in the day. It's very similar to how I would do stuff now. Just it's done, it's the OG stuff. So I got this off. We're gonna leave all this stuff crappy for now because I'm just doing a mock-up. All right. So like I mentioned, this car has it has staggered wheels on it. So if you're just kind of trying to learn about this stuff, I know we got people of all different expertise to watch the channel. 46 to 48 Fords had 4.5 inch wide, and somebody may correct me, it may even be like 41, 42 as well. But I just say 46 to 48. Had 4.5 inch wide, but 16 inch wheels. While 40 Ford had 4 inch wheels, and then V860's got 3.5 inch wide. And then there was trucks that got 5, which are quite rare, just like the V860s. But this was kind of the common big and little kind of setup where it was, wider in the rear just a little bit. Oh, hell yeah. That's it. All right, man. I heard the car let out a sigh of relief when I let it down, and it had the correct wheels and basically correct tires as it was back in the day. Just slight difference in sizes, but man, this thing looks so much better. Incredible. I'm so psyched. Just looks amazing. Again, I went up in size in the tires in the back, so they fits the fender just a little bit better. If I was being picky, I'd like to probably take a leaf out of the rear just to drop it down just a little bit in the back. We may do that. The front, we went one size smaller, but we do know that those tires that were on it were smaller than a standard 616 that we know nowadays. I have the front. This is a little trick I do when I have a car with no engine or whatever in it. And we're mocking it up. I have ratchet straps on a ratchet strap around the front axle and cross member to jack it down. You'll ratchet it down just to simulate how the car will sit with weight in the front end. I think I'll probably like to take a leaf out of the front to get it down. So again, we're keeping the same basic identity of the car, but I just adjust the stance to get it just real dialed in. So The other thing you may notice on this side, and that's why I didn't do the intro in front of the car, is this side of the car looks way better. Like kind of shiny, the paint sort of, you know, matches. It looks black again. You can see like the stuff I haven't touched, you know, it's not black, it's like a gray. So the driver's side, so that's, yeah, that's the passenger side. Driver's side, what I ended up doing is I was reading a bunch about blending lacquer paint, old lacquer paint jobs, and I wanted to try and just mess around with bringing the paint that was all gray, and then we had the driver's door was super shiny, which you could still see. It's definitely in better shape and a little shinier than the rest of the car. But what I ended up doing is I was reading that you can use like mineral spirits or acetone or lacquer thinner on old lacquer paint, and there was tricks that guys would spray like just straight lacquer thinner, or they would mix a little bit into their first coat of color when they were blending lacquer paint jobs. That was one of the tricks guys would do. So I went over the whole car and basically cleaned the paint, took all what I was called the funk off of the car, which is just all this like years of just grime and stuff off. And I used some Eastwood Pre, which has acetone in it. And I basically wiped it down, sprayed the car down lightly, wiped it all down, and then I kind of mimicked what they were saying they were doing when they were blending the paint jobs. Is you leave it kind of like, I left it like damp, if you will, and then I sprayed over with like a lacquer gloss, just one or two real light coats real quick, just dusted over it for a test, and it brought back the black paint and like just made it black again and didn't dull out right away. But it wasn't super glossy, and because it wasn't like a crazy gloss, it kind of like deadened the door a little bit, and it looks a lot better. So the door is definitely, you know, definitely is different, but we're not trying to like fool anybody. I'm just trying to like make stuff a little better and, you know, make it just not as mismatched. So the driver's side was my test. Unfortunately, I didn't get it on camera because I was kind of scared it would totally fail and not do anything or just look like crap. So to my surprise, it worked out. I'm pretty happy with it. I know, you know, if you're a real painter, you're probably cringing, but it actually looked kind of cool. And I didn't really have anything to lose if it didn't work. It wasn't going to get much worse. So it looks really, really cool. So I think that's what the plan is going to be, is to kind of do that with all the existing paint, is clean it all up, get it all, you know, clean and smooth, and then do that. Now the driver's door and this rear panel here are kind of like my big areas that are really, really ugly, especially a driver's door. So what I also got was some Eastwood underhood black. So I was digging around on their website, and Eastwood has this underhood black, and it is lacquer paint. It's good, you know, good old lacquer paint, because it's made for restorations where, like on the photo, you'd be doing like a muscle car that has a black, satin black, flat black engine bay like they had from the factory. They have a gloss and a low gloss. So I got both. I'm going to test them. I think the low gloss is going to be the one we're wanting. So what I'm going to do is be using this on the parts that are totally have no paint. So this door is just, you know, it's a mess. No paint at all. It all fell off. We don't know. I think there was a tarp or something over this door, and it just made all the paint fall off over the years. We're not sure. So I'll be using this on the door and this rear panel, and probably I'll dust in the areas where we're going to do the patches. So I'm going to patch in down here at the bottom, and I think I'm going to try and you know, weld that in, make the weld disappear, and then I'll spray some of this on that area, kind of melt it in around into the other paint, and then we'll spray the whole thing with some of that, you know, lacquer like gloss, and should work out pretty good, and we'll kind of make the whole car look as one. But I need to wait for the hood to show up. I need to, you know, do all that rust repair. But driver's side was kind of a test, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out. So you may hate it, you may love it, but I kind of decided I like the car as an old Survivor. It's only a Survivor once, and if I decide I hate it or I want to totally redo the car at some point, I can do that. But for right now, I'm trying to get cars on the road and enjoy them. This is probably the quickest way to do that without doing a crazy full blast it and redo it. We're still going to redo, you know, the inside sub rails and stuff that need repair and the patch panel. So last couple things is, so we got the engine. So I went down to North Carolina and we met with Brian. Brian and his mom let us dig around, Mike and I, when we went down for Moultrie. We stopped there on the way, and I bought a bunch of cool stuff while I was there. And this engine I left behind because basically I ran out of money. I went there and there was so much good stuff, I couldn't believe it. I like blew my whole Moultrie fund in one day while I was at Brian's place and his mom's place, and I left this engine behind. And this is like basically like a full house flathead that his dad built a number of years ago. And basically his dad was a flathead engine builder. He rebuilt this engine, and all they did was they put it in the bed of their F1 pickup truck, took it to shows, and they would cackle it occasionally. So he would run it, let it warm up, rev it up a bunch of times, and then shut it down. And that was pretty much it for, so this thing has basically 0 miles and very little run time on it, hours wise. And he had all the good stuff, his dad. 4-inch crank, it's supposed to be a fairly big bore. It's got an old Harman Collins magneto on it. It's fully dressed with Wyand speed equipment. It's got the finned heads with the 4.2 intake. It's just bitchin'. It's such a kick-ass engine. Brian told me the price he wanted to get for it, and it was very reasonable for all the stuff done to the engine and all the speed equipment on it. So I made the jump because now I have this car. So right after I got this car, and we talked to Jack DeLorean, and he told me it had like a full house or a built flathead in it. I texted Brian like that day and was like, Brian, I want that engine. I'll take it. Send him a deposit, and we went down and got it. So I've been keeping this kind of quiet. So yeah, I got this engine. This is destined for the car, and we will, obviously I'll probably have to change the headers, I think, because they were kind of modified to sit on a stand, and the way they point, I don't know if they'll work in this car. We'll see. But the last thing on this car is, and it's been something we've been working on, the hood for the car. If you guys may remember in the photos, or the photo that we got from Jack, and the other photos we talked about in the beginning, was this had a clamshell louvered hood that was, something you saw in a lot of the old Dry Lakes cars, and I wanted that back so badly. So through a series of events and people that were mutual, that watched the channel and were friends with Tom, who actually was the gentleman that bought the 3-window that lived above this car for many years from the estate. He ended up getting a bunch of parts with the car, or separately, and he ended up with the hood. However it happened, he got the hood. All these years he's had that hood, and didn't really, nobody really put 2 and 2 together, and I found out that he had it, and through some coaxing with some friends and me kind of hitting him up a couple of times, we were able to come to an agreement. And one of the other reasons, one of the things we're doing on my trip to Michigan to go to the Gilmore, is we're going to get the lift for this car from the building. So we're going to go back and visit the building where this is at. Fingers crossed it's still there, because the building's obviously in a kind of bad area. And we're going to get the lift for this, that this car was on, save the lift, and we're going to get the hood from this car, and then we're going to go visit the Gilmore and do a little bit of picking. So I'm going to have the hood for this car pretty soon, and I'm really, really excited because it's kind of like the last big thing for the car. I don't have the grill for the car, but I have another filled grill shell that we can put on. Again, I'll paint it with that black and we'll blend it all together, and it should look okay. So really, really excited to have like that. That's probably like the most important piece for the car, and I was really, really like passionate about getting that hood back, because it's so important to get the pieces for these cars back with each other. Sure, we could have copied the hood and probably made it look okay, but just the heart and soul of this car was the hood, the right wheels and tires, the gauges, different stuff on this car is part of the car's identity. So to get that hood back, I'm just so thankful. I can't wait to get it. Maybe by the time you see this, I might already have it. I don't know when we're going to put this video out. So anyways, that is the update on the Jack DeLorean Roadster. The car is getting some of its identity back. I'm getting some of the parts, and I am hoping we can really dig into this thing by the end of this year. So thank you guys for watching. Appreciate it. Catch you later.